As a child, I grew up in a musical family. And so I was always surrounded by music. I think for now, in my art, it's actually what comes the more natural in terms of language to express myself. It's a kind of dialogue sometimes between my kind of sensibility to music sounds and of course images that appear that I try to express and share. For example, in works like Mistel Partition, I choose a certain extract as a melody and to play with this score. But at the same time, I like to share it in a more natural way and to share it with people who are not specifically musicians or able to read the score, but really using the heights and a bit like a singing or dancing notes in natural images. For me, there's no separation between working and living. So it's just naturally in everyday life when I see something which inspires me, and in that case I would make research and use it to learn. It's difficult to say exactly what inspires me, but maybe it's also about being receptive in a certain moment to things. In the idea of undoing the words and getting back from the written words to the spoken words and maybe back to an original idea and coming to the origin of things. So in many spoken words, it's using the flow of the ink as an ongoing loop. My way of using material is to compare to a painter who uses his palette with different colors, with different textures. So that's my way in choosing and combining. So usually quite simple things. It's not in the idea to invent anything new, but by open up to something different and giving shape to an intention. Let's take the example of the nested piece. The spot is very much about preciseness, to find the right spot with the right weight and having things in balance, and at the same time still being aware of this balance and unbalance. So being nested is also a metaphor for our balance and for our consciousness in the present moment. If we relate to the new piece, the stone collection, it is also about taking the time of contemplation, and it's about this being receptive to nature. And actually it's not me choosing them, but they talk to me somehow, and that's how I choose, and they have their place in this composition. It's an invitation to the visitors also to be open to contemplate and receive. And in that way also to make it as a personal relation to the works.
I think it's all about the way she observes the world. She has this capacity to see the beauty of things, sometimes the most simple things, like the potatoes. Sometimes it's a connection between the sound and what she sees outside. There is this beautiful video. Yeah, so what is quite fascinating is the way she creates her artworks. It always comes from an image that appears to her in her everyday life. She sees something and she already knows what will be the artwork. Then there is a long process, of course, and often she tries to find the most simple form. It is also something quite unique. It's her ability to translate it in simple forms to which everybody can relate.
Maybe specifically with Rome, so having this really lovely opportunity to stay for a year in Rome. I had a certain idea of what I wanted to create during that year and use these references, but suddenly I was really overwhelmed in a way that I was not able to work. I really needed a moment to arrive and let these impressions settle down. For example, Pays de Neige, the video that you see in the exhibition, is very much about this moment of preparing myself, trying to use a certain Zen meditation with this rope to flatten down the ground, so passing through the whole area of the Villa Medici, a bit like preparing a canvas as a painter. Before creating, before touching your brush. The reflection is finding a solution to this question, what can I add as an artist? So it needed this time, and actually, rather at the end, I felt much more free to just play with my environment, play with the references.
It's really an adventure, you know. We started 4 years ago, this work together. We worked on more, quite different display and different connections. They were more like duos between artworks. From these two experiences, then we started to be clear what was the best connections and the journey also in the museum. So we could make the best of the show.
I think it's very special for me to have this, let's say, last exhibition of the touring shows, especially after really long year experience and friendship with Taiwan. At the one hand, coming from somewhere, but in a way the nested feeling is quite important, especially here.